administration, NATO was created. Actually, NATO was created beforehand, but several other unifying defensive organizations were created. CENTO, SATO, Southeast Asian Treaty Organization. All these organizations were created during the Eisenhower administration. NATO was created a little before, but he was the first NATO commander before he became president. And one of the ideas was to create NEATO, the Northeast Asian Treaty Organization, which was to include South Korea, Japan, Taiwan, and the US. And that idea kind of fell apart. It never got beyond just talking about it. And the reason why it didn't work out is because at that time, obviously Japan and Korea, it was pretty close to the World War II, and there had been some bad things that the Japanese had done in Korea. And so that didn't work out. But the idea is, in response to an aggressor, such as China, if you have a unified front, it's stronger than having each country trying to take care of itself by itself or with the U.S. So I think there are some fundamental underlying parts that already exist. All the weapons that the U.S. and Korea, Japan, Taiwan, and the Philippines use are designed to be NATO standard. Why is that? Because the U.S. has designated certain countries around the world as being major non-NATO allies. And South Korea, Japan, the Philippines, and Taiwan, according to the law, are considered major non-NATO allies. And by designating that, that means everything that the U.S. sells to those countries is interoperable with the weapon systems that those countries build, because the idea is that if you create a standard, then the country that receives them also has to do the same. So that's one thing. The second thing is that's on a sort of technical level. On the operational level, Japan, for example, has several agreements between itself and the Philippines and India and Australia that are security agreements. So that if they need a ship needs to be repaired, reciprocal access agreements have been signed by many, many countries that are allies to the United States. And so what we have is an overlapping connectivity between these countries already. So to me, just making it one step above that, actually connecting everything together formally, would be a very useful tool, because that means that everybody starts working together and operating together as a unified team. Instead of having US and Korea, and then US and Japan, then you have the trilateral or quadrilateral, et cetera. And so I think it's very possible. And I think what's actually happening, without naming it, it's actually occurring.
Mm-hmm. Well, and this creates a sort of deterrence, doesn't it?
Yes.
Even psychologically.
And I think it's a good thing, because China has been growing its military at such a rapid pace that now the U.S. is nowhere able to even maintain equal production level of ships, airplanes, tanks, all these different things.
Can you just qualify that for me a little bit? Like give me some sort of framework to understand how quick or how big that growth has been, military growth.
So in the late 1990s, China's military was no more capable than Taiwan's military in the late 1990s. Today, China's Navy is larger than the US Navy. China's Coast Guard is bigger than any other Coast Guard combined. They've got so many ships, and the ships are retired Navy ships. So they just painted them white instead of the gray color. Their budget for their military is, some estimate, between $300 billion to $700 billion. The U.S. is reaching $1 trillion roughly. But don't forget, things in China cost a lot cheaper. Mm-hmm. So the actual amount of weapon systems that are being built is incredible. One statistic that probably will be very interesting to you, the capacity of China's Navy yards is 200 times more than the United States. 200 times more. If you were to combine Japan's shipbuilding, commercial shipbuilding, and Korea's shipbuilding, and every other country in the world shipbuilding, that would equal China, including the United States. The United States has really lost a lot of its shipbuilding capabilities.
Right. It's reliant on Korea and Japan, in fact.
On the
right?
commercial side.
Yeah.
And now we're looking at the military side too, but it's a little bumpy. But the idea is that they're building a military that's global, not just local. And when a country does that, it's messaging that its intentions are not local. Its intentions are global.
Well, so let's go back to Taiwan for a moment. There's different opinions on this among people. You know, it's written into the Chinese military charter, I think, that they're going to take. If I understand, it's part of the whole ethos of the Chinese military that Taiwan will be taken. Like people learn that.
It's in the Constitution.
Right.
It's in the PRC Constitution that Taiwan is part of China.
One understanding is that they really want to take it without firing a shot.
Correct.
Right. But you seem to be convinced that they will do it kinetically, at least when I read your writing. And so maybe explain to me what you really think about that.
Okay. So let me give you just a little background. In 2005, China passed the Anti-Succession Law, which says that Taiwan will be taken either through peaceful or non-peaceful means. And non-peaceful means is code word for war. But they don't consider taking Taiwan a war because it's a renegade province. They say as part of internal China. A war can only be done between two countries. So they don't accept Taiwan as being a country, so it's a non-peaceful means. Okay. They laid it out in that law. What they're doing is they're going in both directions. In other words, they're trying to do peaceful means and non-peaceful means in parallel, and a huge amount of effort in both of them. Now, the reason I think that they are going to have to go kinetic is because over time, the people in Taiwan are identifying themselves more as Taiwanese than as Chinese. You know, a lot of the Chiang Kai-shek people that came and a lot of the education system that he developed promoted the idea of China as being ethnic Chinese is sort of like actually similar to what the unity law is in China today. During the White Terror period, if you spoke other than Mandarin, you were ridiculed and you were put down in a sense of humiliated, okay? Democracy started in the early 90s, and so since then, people in Taiwan have rediscovered their Taiwanese heritage and they're more proud of it. So roughly 60, 70% of the people here identify themselves as Taiwanese. Another 10, 15, 20% identify themselves as Taiwanese and Chinese, and maybe the last 10, 20% are Chinese, okay? But a lot of those people who identify themselves as Chinese are also part of the older generation. So the trend line is going to more and more Taiwanese. So if the trend line is going in that direction, it's a problem for China because it means that the non-peaceful means is not going to be successful.
And despite these massive efforts that they've had to make the non-peaceful wings work, the cognitive warfare, the ideological subversion, the buying of media, kind of goes on and on.
Right. So they're still trying. What they're finding is that they might not be able to convince people in Taiwan to be more Chinese, but what they are finding successful is that they can co-opt politicians, they can co-opt businesses, they can co-opt religions, they can co-opt the mafia, they can co-opt a lot of people, even in the military. Many of the spies that were caught in the last couple of years were military members or retired military members. So they're finding success in certain areas. And, so for example, when the leader of the KMT went to China and met with Xi Jinping, Xi is promoting sort of a more peaceful integration while maintaining independence, which is not going to work for China. But the fact is that she went to Xi Jinping and got that anointment of being in line with what they want. This is success for them. And if they were to win the next election in 2028, I believe that they will see that the peaceful means is more likely, even though the people are not pro-China or believing themselves to be Chinese. The politicians are willing to, if the KMT wins, along with the coalition, let's say, then they would see that as sort of like the time period of President Ma Ying-jeou, who for 8 years sort of built up the relationship between Taiwan and China, and then it broke when the people said, enough, we don't want to be unified with China. And so I think that's their hope. But they also want to leave the kinetic option open and available. And Xi Jinping has told his military to be ready by 2027 if he, and beyond, if he were to order them, that they should be able to take Taiwan if he ordered them. So that's the two tensions that are being promoted simultaneously, and neither of them, both of them are on overdrive.
And this is also in the context of all this upheaval in the Chinese military, though, in the last year.
Yeah, I would say that it's, okay, so the upheaval is at the senior levels, you know, 2, 3, 4-star generals. I think it has to do with disappointment, because I suspect that all those generals promised Xi Jinping to be at certain points along their journey to being prepared to take Taiwan, capability-wise, and they're not achieving it. And so he's disappointed in them, he's firing them or disappearing them, depending on the case. And he's using corruption